I'm Kieran.
And I'm Joe.
I'm Andy. Welcome back to AI FYI. Here's a quick take on AI and open source. What's open source? Basically, open source is software that's basically just text that's free to view, modify, distribute. It's letting people copy paste code and use it in other places. An example of open source AI would be something like Meta's Llama. This is a huge large language model. Works just like ChatGPT if you're familiar with it, but you can copy the files that make up the model and run it yourself and use it for whatever you want if you follow their license. So, talking about the good of open source AI, Joe.
Yes. So, what's good about open source AI? Let's start with global collaboration. So, oftentimes, when you have open source products, it means that anybody can contribute to it, anyone in the world. They can also take it and run with it and improve it. There's also a lot of trust and transparency benefits. So, if you are releasing your code out into the world for anyone to see, it can be scrutinized and looked at to make sure that there are no gaps and that privacy is protected. It's not a black box that no one can see into. There's also a lot of cost saving benefits. So if you are a freelancer or a small business and you can't afford to create your own giant model like Meta did, you can take a model like Llama and go and build your product with it at a far lower cost. This means a diversity of products out in the world, a diversity of AI products. It means more competition, more different things because the barrier to create them is lower. This similarly means an expedited development of technology. So if something is out there that a lot of people can use, the race is on to sort of build more products at a faster rate. So that's the good. Andy, I'm going to hand it back to you to talk about the bad.
Yeah, so bad things about open source and AI. Listen, if there's a problem with something open source and then a million different products copy it, they all have that same problem all of a sudden. So if there's a security vulnerability, it could get copied over many, many times before it's discovered and fixed. And open source, when companies release something open source, they're not always being altruistic. It could be a shady way to capture markets and users. For example, an argument could be made that when Google open sourced Android, it's because they wanted the Google App Store to be the most important app store in the world. And what does it mean to open source a model when perhaps it wasn't even yours to give away for free? If data used to train the eye was perhaps stolen or scraped from people who didn't want it scraped, then what permission or rights does the person who created the model have to share it for free? And of course, when you open source leading edge models like llamas, then people can use that leading model to do unethical things. And we're seeing a lot of applications of AI that are very, very bad. Speaking of bad, let's move on to the buggy. Kieran.
Sure. There's a lot of problems with this early stage, and really where we are is we are in the wild west of AI. No one really knows where it's going to go or what we're going to be able to do with it, and everyone's just starting to get their feet wet with this new technology. And so, one of the issues or bugs with AI open source is it's not easy to necessarily use it. So for something like Llama, I can download the model, I can have it, I can use it. But to actually use it effectively, you need a giant machine, right? And this is like the most expensive computer you could ever imagine. You need that computer just to be able to run it. And so it becomes very expensive, actually, if I want to use some of these models by myself. The other problem with open source is it is not fully supported by someone that is incentivized to support it beyond their own, goodwill. So I might download an open source model, and there may be all sorts of things wrong with it. But one, it's not going to be necessarily documented. And then it's also not necessarily going to be supported. So if there is an issue that I find, it's up to me to fix that issue. And finally, there are also licenses that come along with these open source models. And what Meta has done with Llama is they've actually created a new license called the Llama Open Source License. Is that what it's called?
Llama community.
Llama Community License. And in the fine print there, they state that they can actually change the rules of that license at any time they want. So today, I might use this model. I can use it for free. I can do whatever I want with it. But tomorrow, if Meta decides, hey, we want to start charging everyone that's using our Llama model, now I am at their will. and at their discretion of whether I can use it or pay for it or what has to happen. So still a long way to go in terms of how open source is leveraged in AI and what the benefits and the drawbacks are going to be, but we are in the early stages and it is the wild west of AI.
That's it for the good, the bad, the buggy on AI and open source.
And as always, with our quick takes, if you found this interesting, go check out the full episode. It is the one right after this one.